Oh my god, she's a weirdo.
Hello, 'tis I, Fat Cow. Well, I've always known that Foodie Booty isn't exactly what we would call an intellectual. She's not known for her cognitive abilities, let's say. She's not exactly Einstein, is what I'm implying. What I didn't know up until yesterday is how lacking in any common sense whatsoever this individual is. I mean, talk about not thinking things through. Now, this video is going to be very information dense, I'm afraid, because I've been doing research and finding out things about this country that Foodie has decided to reside in, that she claims is safer than it was, for which I want to reply, safer than it was doesn't mean safe. That boiling pot of water that you've turned the heat off on isn't as hot as it was because you've turned it off. Still doesn't mean it couldn't deglove you if you stuck your hand in it. Before I go into the actual factual segment of the video, I do have a couple of observations I'd like to make. At one point, Foodie says, yes, we've got a car, it has an AC. But then later, she says we need to get a car. So which is it? She also said that she had to show a marriage certificate in order to cross the border. Well, no, you don't need that to cross the border, particularly not the way you did it, but I'll get into that later. She says she's been spoilt her whole life. True. If I have to rough it, then oh well. Syria isn't roughing it. It's not even close to what roughing it is to the majority of rational thinking people. Rational thinking people is roughing it is going without electricity for a bit. Camping. Roughing it. Roughing it doesn't usually imply actually being in physical danger, putting your life at risk, exposing yourself to numerous diseases that are spread by mosquitoes and animals. There is a warning, it'll come up later, that you must not touch any of the wildlife, any of the animals, stray cats and dogs included. Roughing it is, having to not have so many foods that you like because you can't afford them and just, sticking with the basics. Roughing it, sleeping in your car, not being in a country that every Western government on the planet has advised extremely strongly for their nationals not to travel to. In a bit, I'm going to show you what the Canadian government has said today about travelling to Canada, just so that, we can see to what extent they are looking out for their own, in Foodie's words. Now, the argument that tourists are allowed to go and the fact that tourists are allowed to travel to Syria proves it's safe. Really? That's proof it's safe? Okay, well, tourists are allowed to enter. They usually only go to the safer areas, which is Damascus, and even then only the central areas of Damascus. They are advised not to leave their hotel or accommodation without a tour guide, so they are escorted by somebody who knows the area. And they probably, almost definitely, don't upload their material until they're back in their own country, because if you're on a tourist visa in Syria, you're not allowed to work. Everybody is really, really friendly. Everybody is really, really friendly. Yes, I'm not disregarding that statement whatsoever, but you may find Foodie, similarly to the experiences I had in the Middle Eastern country I lived, as a foreigner, you're perceived as wealthy by default. The fact you're almost £500 means you obviously eat well. And so these people who have been living in abject poverty and in fear for their lives for many, many years are going to see you as somewhat a benevolent figure who could help them in their situation. People are going to be more friendly towards you than normal because they think you can help. And you will be flattered by this initially. You will be flattered at the treatment you get and how put on a pedestal, I mean a rather large, very, very sturdy pedestal, we'll call it a boulder, that the locals will put you on a boulder. But eventually you're going to grow tired of this because you're going to realise it's not you they're being nice to, it's your wallet. And that is no criticism to any of the locals whatsoever. They're just trying to survive. And my last observation, let's say, Salah didn't want you there. He does not want you there. All the things he told you to try and dissuade you from going to Syria, he wasn't doing, he wasn't saying out of concern for your well-being. He was legitimately trying to prevent you going there because he doesn't want you there. Not because he cares about you, but because he escaped you. He was free from you, but still getting your money. It was the best situation given the circumstances, you getting him yeeted out of the country he was residing in. He does not sound happy that you're there at all. And it's not because he's worried. He's not stressed and worried about you and how well you do. He didn't want you there. He does not want you there, and not because he's worried. I do want to say, much as I dislike the individual concerned, it is nice to see he didn't abandon the cat. But on the same token, I'm horrified he brought the cat to a country that is so ill-equipped for people with pets. You understand what I mean. I'm worried about Julia still. And so, this country that Foodie has found herself in, is it safe? Will she be fine? Do dogs lick their own testicles? Okay, let's start at the beginning. This information I'm about to present comes from the Canadian government directly and was dated and is factual as of the 26th of June. Risk level of Syria. Avoid all travel. Avoid all travel to Syria due to ongoing tensions in the region, the continued volatile security situation, armed clashes and airstrikes, criminality, kidnappings, and the threat of terrorism. If you're in Syria, you should consider leaving if it is safe to do so. Safety and security. The security situation remains unpredictable and could deteriorate significantly with little or no warning. This may result in travel disruptions, including flight cancellations and airspace closures. You should Monitor local and international media to stay informed of this rapidly evolving situation. Be vigilant and follow the instructions of local authorities at all times. Register or update your contact information with the Registration of Canadians Abroad Service to receive the latest information from the Government of Canada. The security situation remains volatile following the collapse of the former regime in December of 2024. Localized clashes between opposing armed groups and airstrikes continue to occur in several governorates across Syria. Damascus Airport is operational and Aleppo Airport has resumed limited commercial operations, but several airlines are still suspending flights to and from Syria. Confirm the status of your flight with your airline before going to the airport. Land border crossings may close with little notice. Verify their status before you travel. The Canadian government does not have an office in Syria. If you and your family require assistance, contact Global Affairs Canada 24/7 Emergency Watch and Response Centre. You should also register or update your contact information through the Registration of Canadians Abroad Service. Identify safe means to leave the country. Exercise extreme caution at all times and always be aware of your surroundings. If you choose to travel to Syria or remain in the country despite this advisory, keep in mind that you are responsible for your own safety and that of your family. Ensure that your travel documents are up to date. Terrorism. There is a threat of terrorism in Syria. Despite international counter-terrorism operations, terrorist actors remain active in the country and could take advantage of the political instability to carry out attacks. Attacks, both targeted and indiscriminate, are unpredictable. They could involve the following types of weapons and/or devices: suicide vests, improvised explosive devices, vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, rockets and mortars, assault weapons. Targets could include government buildings, including schools, places of worship, airports and other transportation hubs and networks, public areas such as tourist attractions, restaurants, coffee shops, shopping centres, markets, hotels and other sites frequented by foreigners, residential areas. Be particularly vigilant during religious holidays, public celebrations or major political events. Terrorists use such occasions to mount attacks. There is a high crime rate. Smuggling, trafficking activities occur in southwestern Syria, especially along the border with Iraq. There is widespread corruption and bribery throughout the country. Petty crimes such as pickpocketing and purse snatching occurs. Avoid travelling at night. Do not show signs of affluence or wear expensive jewellery. This advice to the woman who flashed stacks of cash online already. Brilliant. Also, in medieval times, being significantly larger was considered a status symbol, a sign of affluence, and by that logic, a nearly £500 woman waddling about might be displaying, affluence, even if they're doing nothing. I mean, considering the poverty and the food shortages that the country is currently going through, a humongous lump of an obvious Westerner screams, "I have money," especially filming on their camera, the latest version of whatever it is she uses. Bit hard to pretend you're poor there, foodie. You're going to stick out like the proverbial sore thumb. King Kong's sore thumb. That was inky. Do not carry large sums of cash or valuables unnecessarily. Keep your personal belongings, including your passport and other travel documents, in a secure place. Avoid isolated areas. Kidnapping. Kidnapping for ransom is a frequent phenomenon in various parts of the country, especially in tribal areas and across southern Syria. Others are disappeared. Politically motivated kidnappings by armed and terrorist groups often result in execution or disappearances. Be extremely vigilant at all times and use varied and unpredictable routes and schedules when travelling. Demonstrations occur. Security forces may use excessive force to disperse crowds. Even peaceful demonstrations can turn violent at any time. They can lead to disruptions to traffic and public transportation. Avoid areas where demonstrations and large gatherings are taking place. Follow the instructions of local authorities. Monitor international and social media for information on ongoing demonstrations. Women travelling alone are at risk of facing harassment and verbal abuse, and in some areas, noticeably in territories controlled by terrorist groups, are at risk of physical assault. Service outrages and supply shortages. Due to infrastructure damage and mismanagement, Syria experiences regular power outrages. At best, some areas of the country receive roughly 2 to 3 hours of electricity per day. Those who are most fortunate rely on fuel-powered generators. Access to fuel is rare and inconsistent. Drought has caused severe water and food shortages across the country. Safe running water may not always be available. Telecommunications are sometimes disrupted. Road conditions and road safety are poor throughout the country. Unenforced traffic law and problematic roads and infrastructure make road travel very dangerous. Authorities may also impose road travel restrictions without notice, making travel slow and dangerous. Avoid driving after dark. Roadblocks and checkpoints are common, included on major roads and highways in and around major cities. They are also present along the highways connecting Damascus to El Pelo, Jordan and Beirut. Never attempt to cross roadblocks, even if they appear unattended. So that's the advice of the Canadian government as of the 26th of June 2025. Now we're going to go on to the basic travel advice and what you need to know if you wish to travel to Syria, also according to the Canadian government of the same document. So the information basically is less than a week old. Tourists require visas. Business people require visas. Students require visas. If you are a non-Arab national, you can't obtain a visa at the border points of entry. You must obtain it from the nearest embassy of the Syrian Arab Republic or one of its consulates prior to your departure. If you intend to stay in Syria for longer than 14 days, you must register with the Syrian Immigration and Passports Office before the 15th day after your arrival. If you travel on a tourist visa, this requirement is applied each time you enter Syria, whether you have multiple entry or single entry visas. Some travellers may require an exit permit to leave the country. This permit can be obtained from the General Security Department. When travelling to this destination, you might be at risk for diseases that can be prevented with vaccinations or medications, including yellow fever, which is a country entry requirement. You have to have this vaccine in order to enter Syria. Hepatitis A, measles, hepatitis B, COVID, influenza and rabies. Because the risk of yellow fever, which is contacted through mosquitoes, is quite high, I gave it a little look. Yellow fever symptoms usually start 3 to 6 days after being bitten by an infected mosquito, but sometimes they can take longer to appear. The symptoms are similar to flu, such as high temperature, headache, feeling or being sick, aches and pains, loss of appetite and feeling generally unwell. More serious symptoms include yellowing of your skin and eyes, dark pee, stomach pain, and bleeding from your eyes, nose, mouth or stomach. You may have blood in your vomit and poo. These more serious symptoms can often be fatal. Eating or drinking unsafe food or water or swimming in contaminated water can make you sick. Take precautions by these following tips. Boil it, cook it, peel it or leave it. Only eat food that is prepared safely. Avoid, if possible, getting water in your eyes, mouth or nose when swimming in fresh water, like streams, lakes or canals, especially after heavy rain or flooding. The water may look clean, but can still be contaminated. Don't swallow water when bathing, showering, swimming in pools or using hot tubs. Some infections can spread directly from animals to people, like rabies or bird flu. Others don't spread directly from animals, but can infect you who visit the areas of animals that have been contaminated with their droppings or bodily fluids. Avoid contact with animals like stray dogs, livestock, monkeys, snakes, rodents, birds, bats, street cats, camels if there's any. Stay away from places where animal waste can build up and avoid eating undercooked meat. Finally, medical services and facilities. Basic medical care and medications are extremely limited throughout Syria. There are severe shortages of medical personnel, supplies and equipment throughout the country. Large parts of the country rely on international organisations to provide medical assistance. You will likely need an emergency medical evacuation in cases of serious illness or injury. However, it may be difficult to arrange evacuation due to the volatile security and political situation. Make sure you get travel insurance that includes coverage for medical evacuation and hospital stays. Well, I can only speak for myself, but none of this sounds like roughing it. It sounds like literal survival. It is borderline apocalyptic situations we're looking at here. Risk of disease through eating food, drinking water, touching animals. Risk of disease by being bitten by mosquitoes or ticks. You can't drink the water. You mustn't swallow the water even when you're bathing. You're at risk of being pickpocketed or robbed or even kidnapped. And then if the kidnap isn't fruitful for the kidnappers, you could actually be disposed of or disappeared. Women shouldn't travel alone at any time, and you have to try and appear poor, which is really difficult when you're a 500-pound white woman. It's not roughing it, Foodie. You haven't gone and stayed at Yellowstone Park in a fucking tent. You've gone to a country that is still struggling politically, has actual legitimate terrorist activity within themselves, infighting. Nothing there is going to facilitate an easy life unless you stay in a hotel in Damascus and have a tour guide show you around. It's against the law for a tourist to work there. Like Kuwait, you know, that place you fled from. The only fast food places are places that are pretending to be legitimate Western fast food places. But that is actually the least of your worries. Although you are due, round about now, to start feeling the effects of your fast food withdrawals. Insulin is nigh on impossible to get hold of should you need to go back on it. And anyway, you don't have refrigeration. Power is 1 to 3 hours a day, and then you have to switch to your backup methods, which I would imagine aren't exactly up to par. There's no running water. You have a toilet that doesn't flush, a bidet that doesn't work, and as a result of that, you're going to need to shower, but you don't have a shower either. Sure, you don't need an AC in these temperatures. The temperatures you're experiencing right now are the temperatures I'm experiencing in the UK, and we don't have ACs. Well, let me tell you something, Foodie. I'm struggling with the temperature here without an AC. I'd love an AC. I can't imagine how bad it is for you right now, temperature-wise. Sure, it's better than Kuwait. Almost anywhere is better than Kuwait temperature-wise. You're not going to have fun. It's not going to be easy. And yes, you will lose weight. But that's hardly a reason to voluntarily plonk yourself in the middle of a dystopian hellscape. There are Canadians being held in camps now in Syria who would give both their legs in exchange for leaving Syria, and you just waddled in like it's nothing because you're so fucking insecure about your husband being apart from you, and you're so incapable of existing under your own volition that you need somebody to do stuff for you, that you voluntarily put yourself in a situation that hundreds of people of your nationality are desperately trying to get out of. You are a fucking idiot. Foodie, you might want to take note of this. The Embassy of Canada to Syria in Damascus has suspended its operations. The ability of the Embassy of Canada to Lebanon in Beirut to provide consular and other support throughout Syria is extremely limited. Canadians in Syria and their relatives seeking information should contact Emergency Watch and Response Centre in Ottawa. Now, while it is true that if you drive into Syria, you don't need to pay for a visa, if you go through immigration at an airport, then as a Canadian you would have to pay 125 Canadian dollars. But if you drive, you don't have to pay. How many of the people that were with you when you were waiting for the visa place to open at the border, you know, in your little taxi, how many of those people were foreign? How many were tourists? Were you the only one? Because that's how Arab nationals and people re-entering Syria who are Syrian go in, which is why they don't need the visa on payment. You entered the country in a very suspiciously shady way, didn't you? You wouldn't have been asked for your marriage certificate. There's no need to ask for your marriage certificate for a tourist visa. There is no family or spousal visa per se, so there's no need for the marriage certificate. So that doesn't prove you're legally married, by the way. This is all rather desperate, Foodie. We thought you chasing a meth addict around your little part of Canada was desperate, but this is literally a man stranded in the middle of a desert trying to get water levels of desperation. You're behaving as if your life depends on this. You say that Canada isn't for you, that you tried. Bitch, you lived alone in an apartment, having to rely on yourself and your abilities and to keep your own company for roughly 4 days before you decided this life wasn't for you. You didn't really give it a chance, did you? And why have you run off to Syria so abruptly? Were you having trouble getting hold of Salah? Was that it? Salah doesn't want you there, Foodie. You ruined everything for him. He's only agreed, if agree is the right word, because you forced his hand. You gave him no choice. You were coming, and probably on threat of stopping financial incentives. If he hadn't agreed to facilitate your entry, you would have cut him off financially. You blackmailed him. How wonderfully, wonderfully romantic. That's true love, isn't it? Blackmailing your partner to spend time with them. Good for you, Foodie. Good for you. We're all rather jealous of your current situation. You fucked about, and very, very soon you are going to find out. And finally, I've got to live up to my hype of being that weirdo, that demonic individual with the voodoo dolls. And I just couldn't miss this opportunity, thanks to the suggestion of somebody on Twitter. Dear viewer, comment below the exact date you think Foodie will physically get her ass out of Syria. The date you think she will leave. Basically, predict how long you think she will last there. I'm personally of the opinion that she will leave Syrian soil on the 21st of July this year, so just under 3 weeks from now. If you are the person who closest predicted the date either way, I will make you your own voodoo booty. Handmade, hand-sewn and felted. A commissioned piece to your specifications. It can be from any era, wearing any clothing, doing most reasonable activities. Customed exactly to your specifications, as long as it's not dirty. And I will send you the finished product. No money involved whatsoever, not even for postage, wherever you are. So I'm going to leave you with a few examples of my work, so you get an idea of what you could possibly receive should you predict the day, the actual day that Foodie ends this arc. Custom made Foodie beauty, any era. It could be the Cuba age. It could be that dress she wore to the wake. It could be the swimming pool, veiled with the stuff over her head because, you know, you can't swim in a shirt. It could be any mukbang you want. It could be the one with the pink wig doing the story about, you know, the mass unaliving with the trainers. Anything. I mean, anything, as long as it's not actual. So, enjoy the pictures, and I'm pretty sure I will see you very, very soon.